Have you ever gone to an event and decided to indulge in a piece of cake or maybe had one too many drinks to then wake up the next morning feeling so frustrated, so guilty that you decide to not have breakfast? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 steps on how to overcome food guilt and also discuss the root as to why you might be feeling guilty in the first place. If what I just described resonates with you, please know you're not alone. Research has shown that 1/3 of all the food Americans eat makes them feel guilty. And I myself was a part of that 1/3 for nearly a decade before I found food freedom myself. Now, before we go over the 5 steps on how you can overcome food guilt, let's first get to the root as to what guilt is, what food guilt is, and what is the reason behind why you might be feeling guilty when you eat. First, what is guilt? Guilt is a taught experience. It's a taught emotion from times or experiences of when you feel like you've done something bad. And guilt can be good in certain situations. It could keep us in check at times. Like if you've lied or you've stolen or if you've hurt somebody, those are reasons as to why guilt might appear. But because guilt is a learned emotion, we can sometimes find ourselves putting guilt in places where it just doesn't fit, like food. Food guilt is the feeling like we've done something wrong for eating certain foods or even eating certain amounts of foods. And the number one reason as to why you might be feeling guilty when you eat food is because society and diet culture has groomed you. Truly, take a look at the grocery store the next time you go. What is around you? What labels are around you? You'll probably see snacks that say guilt-free or clean eating or just certain foods that have very specific labels to make you feel bad for not choosing that option. With all of these labels, all of this marketing around us, it's easy to feel wrapped up into this mentality of guilt and overwhelm. However, you are not doomed forever. There is a way out of feeling guilty when you're eating food. There is food freedom at the end of this tunnel. So let's go ahead and dive into the 5 steps on how you can overcome food guilt. Step number 1, cultivate awareness through questioning your thoughts with compassion, without judgment, and start reframing those thoughts. Now, we can't change what we're not aware of. So the first step is whenever you feel guilty with food, take a step back and notice what your thoughts are saying. Notice what that inner dialogue is saying to you without judgment and with compassion. Now, if you notice negative thoughts or criticism when you're eating these certain foods, acknowledge them with compassion and not judgment. And then go ahead, see if you can rewrite that negative thought into either a positive thought or even a neutral thought at best. Now, if you're struggling to separate yourself from these critical thoughts, I really suggest you write them down on a piece of paper or even on your phone, because once you write them down, you can see them for what they are and be able to rewrite them and confront them at hand. I have a little challenge for you. Next time you eat a food that usually brings you a little bit of guilt, I want you to question it. I want you to write it down and ask yourself, when, where, and why these thoughts are appearing. Where does this thought stem from? And then go ahead, reframe it into a more neutral and more compassionate thought. So just for an example, you love Oreos, but every time you eat Oreos, you feel a little bit of guilt for it. Why? Ask yourself, question yourself, give yourself that ability to be a little bit curious. Ask yourself why, when, where did these thoughts come from? What's the root behind it? When you were a little girl, your mom went on a super strict diet. She decided to throw away all of the junk food in the house, including Oreos. And then a couple weeks later, because let's face it, she's on a restrictive diet, she's probably not sticking to it long term, you find her in the kitchen eating some Oreos, followed by some negative comments you hear from her. Whether she's saying, "Oh my gosh, I suck. Why don't I not have enough willpower to stick to this diet? Why do I love these Oreos so much? Sugar is so bad." Whatever it may be, you might have taken those comments and just put them inside your brain for that when you have become an adult, you have now associated Oreos with guilt. So I really encourage you, next time you are sitting down with a piece of food that you normally feel guilty about, ask yourself, when, where, and why do I feel this way? Where do these thoughts stem from? And are these thoughts true? A lot of the times, thoughts do not equal the reality. We have millions and millions of thoughts running inside our little brains every single day. And if we believed every single one of them, we would never be productive or get anywhere in life, right? So ask yourself, when, where, and why are these thoughts popping up? Reframe them to more compassionate, neutral, positive thoughts, and feel at peace with eating that snack, that Oreo, for example. Step number 2 is to stop labeling foods as good or bad or healthy and unhealthy. Now that you've become aware of your thoughts, the next step is to take the emotion out of the thought and stop labeling foods as good, bad, ugly, pretty, healthy, unhealthy. Just stop labeling food altogether. Labeling foods really holds so much weight every time you take a bite, and ultimately that is unhealthy in itself. Now I know you're probably writing in the comments right now saying, Brooke, there are bad foods out there, there are good foods out there, and which I would have to say to you is there are no good and bad foods. Food is just food. Food is just food. However, certain foods are more nutritionally dense compared to others, but there is a place on your plate for all foods. If certain foods aren't feeding your body, then it's feeding your soul, it's feeding your mind, and that is just as important. Allowing yourself to eat all foods without having to skip a meal or having to make up for it later allows you to put food in a place of neutrality and allows you to drop this feeling of food guilt once and for all. Step number 3 is to unfollow or mute accounts that make you feel like shit. Where attention goes, energy flows. If you are constantly being bombarded by messages on social media when you're scrolling of certain body types that they say you should be in, or certain images that make you just feel bad in your body or just make you feel just yucky, unfollow. Don't feel bad about unfollowing them, or if you do want to still support them, then at least mute their account. It's not fair to you to consistently make yourself feel a certain way because of things that you see on social media. Focus your attention on what makes you feel good, and more of that will follow. Step number 4 is to give yourself permission to eat all foods and to ditch the food rules for good. You might even be listening to me right now knowing and thinking of certain food rules that you have given yourself in the past. I want you to banish them forever. Forever. You know these rules. The rules of what you can and can't eat, when and where you should eat. The list goes on and on and on, and it's time to banish them. The truth is, a balanced diet includes all foods. Food is simply not just fuel. It is emotions, it is connection, it is comfort, it is tradition. Food is so much more than just fuel for your body. Individual foods and certain food groups only have power when you allow them to have power. By telling yourself you can't have sugar, automatically places sugar in this elite status that is idolized. You can't touch it, and now that you can't touch it, you automatically want it more and more and more and more. But by removing the rule of I can't eat sugar, suddenly puts sugar in a place of it just being a normal food. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And it takes the emotion away from it. So when you feel these food rules speaking up, fight back. Remember, there is no rules as to why and what you're eating. Step number 5, talk to yourself as you are talking to a friend. Can you just imagine if you were at an event and you saw your friend or family member eating a certain food and you went up to them and said, I can't believe you're eating that. Or, are you sure you want to eat that? And haven't you eaten enough? Or you're going to get so fat if you eat that. You eat sugar. Gross. Did you know carbs are so unhealthy? How absolutely ridiculous does it sound saying it out loud, right? You would never go up to a family member or a friend and say those things. So, why are we doing that to ourselves, right? I hope you are feeling a little bit more confident than you did before. It is going to take time, so I want you to go back and do these steps with any single food that you have that you normally would feel guilty about. And through practice, you are going to have this amazing, euphoric food freedom, and food is not going to hold power over you anymore. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, a subscribe, really helps out my channel, and go ahead, leave a comment down below. Let me know what step you are going to take in gaining this food freedom. Bye guys.